Well, this week, we start to read the book of Vayikra. In English, it's called Leviticus, but the Hebrew name is Vayikra. You know, the teachings in this book are very mystical and deep. It's one of the more complex books of the whole Torah. In fact, in the Orthodox world, when they teach kids the Torah, they start with this book. They don't start with Genesis. They start with this book because they think it's so important, because it's so deep and meaningful. But on the surface, the book is a recounting of the little details of the sacrificial rites. Now, none of that is really relevant to us in our modern lives. But embedded in all that, they're just amazing teachings, but you have to search for them. You have to search for them. And these teachings, the deep meaning of these teachings start with the very first word in the book of Leviticus, the book of Vayikra, which is the word Vayikra. It's such an important teaching, and it's based on this one little thing. If you look at the Torah and look at the words in the Torah, and you look at the word Vayikra, the aleph at the end of the word is very small. It's a scribal abnormality. It's different than the way other words are written. The aleph is just really, really small. And of course, when there's a scribal abnormality, when there's something out of the ordinary in the Torah, the rabbis go bananas. They need to understand why the aleph is small. And it intrigues rabbis, the ancient rabbis, the modern rabbis, and even your rabbi. We try and figure out what the Torah is trying to teach us about this small aleph. Now, there's one common teaching. It's the one that's shared from medieval times. It's about the small aleph. What the teaching says is that the small aleph is a message about humility. You know, the word Vayikra means, and God called. Moshe was very uncomfortable with this idea that God called to him. You know, it made him look like he's special and God doesn't call to anyone else. So he was very uncomfortable. And the rabbi said, because he was uncomfortable, he made the letter very small, hoping that people would not see it and instead read the word not as Vayikra, but as Vayikar. Now, Vayikar in Hebrew means and happened upon. So, of course, that made Moshe much more comfortable, because rather than God calling out to him, God just happened upon him. Could have been happened upon anyone else. In fact, there's even a teaching that God and Moshe got in an argument about this word Vayikra, and Moses was saying, I don't like this whole word Vayikra. And you called, what can we do about it? I want it to be Vayikar. And the rabbi and God and Moshe are arguing, and they said, listen, let's compromise, let's make it small. They said, okay, good, we'll compromise, we'll make it small. We'll make it small. But I think this idea of humility is a really important, because many of us value humility. We think it's really important. But it's important to have a deep understanding of what humility is. Humility isn't just saying, I'm nothing, because if you say I'm nothing and I'm small, then God's given you gifts that you're supposed to bring to the world. And if you say you're small and you don't fully engage these gifts in the world misses something important it would get by what you have to give. Conversely, if you think that humility is about my proving that I'm better than everybody else, you take up all the space in the world. So I like to think that humility is about finding just the right space that you're supposed to occupy in the world. Not too much and not too little. So let me give you some examples about humility and how it plays out in modern day life, because unfortunately, from my point of view, our society has valued the individual more than the collective. The individual is king, and bending yourself to the idea that there are other people in the world that you have to make space for and room for, that isn't one of the prime values of our society. Let me give you an example. Now, I'm sure you all have experienced this. I hope you've all have experienced this. I know I have almost every day. I'm in my car driving on the freeway. I decide to change lanes. The first thing I do is I look and see whether the lane is unoccupied. Lo and behold, it's unoccupied. I turn my little signal on and prepare to move over, and the person behind me in that lane speeds up and takes the space so I can't get to it. That happens to me almost every day on the freeway. And you know what I do? I sigh. I sigh. It used to bother me when I first moved to Los Angeles, but now I just sigh. It wasn't that way in other places I lived in. And there are other things about this valuing the individual more than the collective. You know, when Apple created the phone, which was really a way to connect one person with another, it was really about communal connection. They didn't name it the Wii phone because it was really a way of making one to another, making it I to a we. They called it the iPhone because they recognized that in our society, I is more important than we. That's the saddest thing about it. You know, yeah, the individual is really important, but I think we grow stronger and wiser and more secure when we work together. When we understand that when we work together, we grow stronger. Unfortunately, we have a political leader who doesn't understand this. He thinks that if we just separate ourselves from the world and prove how strong we are, we prove that America is great. Well, I'm not sure that makes America really greater. There's something really special about leaving space for others. This is a very godlike thing to do. Let me explain why leaving space for others is a godlike thing to do. There's a vision of the creation of the world. It's based on a teaching from Rabbi Luria. Rabbi Luria said that the whole universe was filled with God's presence. And in order to make the world appear, God had to contract itself on the edges and leave a virtual space for the world to be created. This was called a process of Tzimtzum in Hebrew. And I don't think God became any less powerful or important by contracting itself to allow someone into the lane, to allow another person, another entity to be created. God was as strong, powerful, and complete as God will ever be, even after this contraction. You know, that's what I really love about Cantor Andy and his singing. He has the most beautiful and powerful voice I could ever imagine. He really does. Now, he could sit back and fill this whole room with his voice, and that would be wonderful. It would be a great concert. But he doesn't try and do that. He tries to invite us to join him. He doesn't take up all the space. He leaves this sense of, I'm here to guide you. I'm here to bring you along with me. I'll bring you along with me. And that's the beauty of the real talent that Cantor Andy has that I respect and love so much. But there's one more teaching about the small aleph I want to share with you tonight. It's really a deep mystical teaching, so of course I want to share it. I love these kinds of things. So the mystical rabbis of our tradition look at the Torah and they see that it's black letters on white parchment. Black letters on white parchment. And it's taught that no two letters can be connected. There always has to be a space between the letters in the Torah. The rabbis thought this because they thought that the spaces, the white spaces in the Torah, were very, very important. In some ways, they thought they were more important than the black letters because these white spaces that weren't so concrete, that weren't so overt, contained esoteric and deeper meanings in the Torah that could only be discerned by looking deeper and deeper into it. So one of the things that Rav Kook, the great first rabbi of the state of Israel, said was, Moshe shrunk that first aleph in the word Vayikra because it was his way to increase the space surrounding it and to demonstrate that he had commitment to look deeper before he made this connection with God in the tent of meeting. I think we all have metaphorical black letters in our lives. They tell us what to do, what our obligations are, what we have to do for our friends, what we have to do for our family, what we have to do for our community. And those are all very important. We can't ignore the black letters. But I believe there are also white spaces in our lives. These white spaces are reaching out to us and letting us know just not what we need to do, but what we're called to do. Not just what we need to do, but what we're called to do. By that I mean what our deep intuition tells us, what our deepest, brilliant mind and soul have to offer to tell us what to do with our lives. That's why Shabbat's such a special time, because it's a time where you put all the black letters aside. You leave time. You don't work, you don't do this, you don't do that, and it opens up some white space in your life where you can take some time to think about what your life's about, what's the big picture here, and what you need to do. You know, Bhavani, Bill and I, every Shabbat, before we light the candles, we take a moment and we share with each other what our intention is for the week. It doesn't have to be some great thing like we're gonna go to Washington and we're gonna march outside the White House. It can sometimes be something small, like I need more rest. I need more rest. But whatever it is, it comes from taking some time to really think about what's going on in our lives. So this week, remember the small aleph. Make space in your life to find these deeper places and make space for others. And get into the habit of Shabbat and maybe other times of taking some quiet time to just see what's going on in your life. Don't just let everything rush by you, swept away by events. It's important to take some time to look for the deeper wisdom that I all think we have. And of course, when someone's trying to change lanes, give them space. Do not speed up and take all the space that they need. Shabbat Shalom.